Good Friday morning. Pastor Rob here. I was just reading Luke chapter 8 about where Jesus healed the ruler of the synagogues. Jarius, his daughter, literally yanked her out of the clutches of death, is what this actually breaks down to. And this Sunday, I'm probably going to talk about the three resurrection messages in the Bible where Jesus raises three people from the dead. But I like this one because this could apply to our times in a way and what we're going through right now. Again, this is Luke chapter 8, verse 40, and it's also in Mark chapter 5, by the way. But there's a lot of things here that we can look at as Jarius, the ruler of the synagogue, went to Jesus. First of all, Jesus is on the edge of the water. He's being surrounded by a crowd, which would be very difficult to get through, and it says that the crowd was so thick that it thronged him. Actually, the words there mean that it was crushing to the point where it could crush bones. So he was being just mobbed by people. But so there was barriers between this man and Christ. Number one, the crowd. Number two, he had a reputation as a Jew, as the leader of the synagogue, that he was putting his job on the line to come to Christ. And so his reputation, his job, his position, and all these things stood in his way to get to Jesus, but he didn't care anymore because his daughter was taking literally her dying breath. And so he rushed out through the crowd. The fact that he got through the crowd is unique because to get through the crowd would have been a very difficult thing, but because he was the ruler of the synagogue and the people knew him by name even, I can't help but think of when I was in the military, when the sergeant major came through, somebody would yell, "Make a hole and make it wide," because here comes the sergeant major, or something to that effect. And that's probably what happened here. Here he came, leader of the synagogue, gets through the crowd, he gets to Christ, and literally throws himself and clutches the legs of Jesus. He basically, the words here mean he fell on his face, lifeless, and grabbed a hold of Christ. And I just wanted to point that out today, that there's a lot of barriers today that we have in coming to Christ. And one of the things that's really stood out to me was while he was talking to Jesus, and he eventually, Jesus is healing another woman in the midst of this, and I'm trying to keep this brief. Somebody comes to the ruler of the synagogue and whispers into his ear, "Don't bother the teacher anymore. Don't torture the teacher anymore because your little girl is already dead." And that was a whisper. And Jesus wasn't supposed to hear that. So you have all these crowds, all these barriers, all the thronging, all the people crowding around him, all the noise, and Jesus hears this whisper. Actually, he wasn't supposed to hear that. In Luke 8:50, it says, hearing this, Jesus said to Jarius, "Don't be afraid, just believe." And so how many people are whispering in your ear, or how many things are whispering in your ear, and how many obstacles are there between you and Christ today? Know this, that Jesus hears every whisper, every cry, amidst the crowd, amidst the distraction. He hears the whisper. And what he finally says is, don't be afraid, just believe. Stop fearing, start believing. That's basically what he's saying to Jarius, the ruler of the synagogue. You came through all these obstacles, you got through all these barriers, all these people are telling you no. And I hear that from Christians all the time. People say, "You're weak. That's why you need a crutch. That's why you need the church. That's why you need the Bible. That's why you need Jesus. You're weak." People are trying to whisper in your ear. The devil is trying to whisper in your ear. And remember, in Ephesians 6, we don't battle against people. We don't battle against flesh and blood. We battle against principalities and rulers of darkness, and people are used sometimes by the devil just to distract you and to discourage you from following Christ. But Jesus hears that whisper. If you whisper to Christ, "I need you," if you whisper to Jesus, "Save me," he hears you. And so we got to rise above all the distraction, turn our deaf ear to all the noise, and focus on Christ like Jarius did. Risk it all. Risk it all if we have to run to Christ, cling to him, grab a hold of his leg, and beg him, "Come help me." He hears that, and his answer to us is stop fearing, just believe. Stop fearing, start believing. And that's where we need to be today as Christians in this time when times are tough. God is in this. God is with us. God hears the whisper amidst all the noise. And Psalm 46:10, be still and know that he is God. I just like that. That stuck out to me. It was basically amidst the crowd, amidst all opposition, amidst all barriers, Jarius got to Christ, and he looks at him and says, stop fearing, start believing. So I pray we can do that today as Christians. As we move forward and this all passes and we get moving forward as a church and you get moving, maybe as new believers you found Christ during this time. Stop fearing, start believing. God has this, God's in control. We have nothing to lose. And as what happens here, the final, the closing part of this was that Jarius' daughter, it says that Jesus grabbed a hold of her hand and grabbed her firmly and ripped her up off the bed where she was believed to be dead. And I believe that this points to the picture that we can be ripped out of the clutches of death by the hand of Christ. And that's what he's asking us to do. Call on him, believe in him, stop fearing, start believing, and he will grab your hand, rip you out of the clutches of death, and give you new life. So have a great day. Stop fearing and start believing. I'll see you Sunday.